All right, everybody. Sorry for absolutely no notice, but I didn't have any notice. Just want to let you guys know what happened. So I'm sitting here planning my afternoon show, the Friday afternoon show, which is going to be a busy show in and of itself. And then I saw this tweet by Monica. Monica's like, at 11 o'clock, Trump's doing a press conference. I'm like, what? In 5 minutes? Well, what the heck is he going to be talking about? I don't know. As you can see, the rest of the schedule, which I was planning for, is 2:30 he's doing executive orders, and then 3 p.m. he's doing remarks at the White House about a Bitcoin and digital asset summit meeting. So that's what's coming up later on this afternoon. What he's going to be announcing right now, I don't have a clue, and I venture to say most of the people in the press don't have a clue because it was completely unannounced. Right now, we can go ahead and look at this thing is happening, the redesignation of Fort Liberty back to Fort Bragg.
And children Nathan and Dylan on board.
Love this.
Amy Redinger, granddaughter of Private First Class Bragg, accompanied by spouse Christopher Redinger and children Anara and Cordelia Redinger. Brian French, grandson of Private First Class Bragg. Benjamin French, grandson of Private First Class Bragg, accompanied by spouse Sherry French and daughter Avery French. Command General, U.S. Army Special Operations Command, Lieutenant General Jonathan Braga and Mrs. Braga. Mr. Dan Dietrich, North Carolina Civilian Aide to the Secretary of the Army. Mr. Blair Schwader, North Carolina Civilian Aide to the Secretary of the Army. Mr. Grayson Overall, from the office of Senator Tom Tillis. Director, Sergeant Major Retired Rick Long, representing Secretary Jocelyn Millett, Secretary of the North Carolina Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. And from the 82nd Airborne Division Command Team, Major General James Pat Work and Mrs. Work, and Command Sergeant Major Randolph Delapina and Mrs. Delapina.
Now they're on the set.
The color guard for today's ceremony is provided by the Fort Bragg Sergeant Audie Murphy Club. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for honors to Lieutenant General Anderson. Today's salute is being fired by Alpha Battery, 3rd Battalion, 319th Airborne Field Artillery Regiment, the Apex Battery, commanded by First Lieutenant Timothy Carter and Staff Sergeant Christian Villafana. Please remain standing for honors to the nation and the invocation, which will be delivered by the Fort Liberty Garrison Chaplain, Colonel J. Putin.
invite you to pray with me. Almighty and gracious God, it is with gratitude that we come before you this day as we rename this installation. Named after a soldier, a paratrooper whose valor, devotion to duty, and true grit rose to meet immense challenges on the battlefields 80 years ago. We remember. And we ask you, Lord, this day that this legacy would continue. May the soldiers who presently serve and those who will serve here in the future display the same courage and commitment to service. Now, may your blessing be upon this place, and may the lives of the soldiers and families stationed here flourish from this day forward. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. In the name of Christ, I pray. Amen.
Please be seated. At this time, Captain Laura M. Kelly from Alpha Battery, 3rd Battalion of the 319th Airborne Field Artillery Regiment is presenting Mrs. Diane Watts with the last canister fired from today's salute battery in recognition of her father's service and dedication. Today, we are gathered to witness the historic redesignation of Fort Liberty, North Carolina to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. At this time, the host for today's ceremony, Lieutenant General Anderson, accompanied by Command Sergeant Major Barker, Colonel Mixon, and Command Sergeant Major Scott, will conduct the official casing of the Fort Liberty garrison colors for the last time and the uncasing of the Fort Bragg colors.
We are going to have to step away for a 2-minute break here on Live Now from Fox, continuing live coverage after that.
All right, so while they're going to break, we can go live and I could catch up with you guys. So I have, as I mentioned earlier, I will show this to you guys again. I was planning my afternoon show, which is going to be big. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. And then Monica posted that this is what's going on later this afternoon, 2:30 and 3, so you guys can join me then. But then she updated and said 11 a.m. President Trump is going to be giving remarks. So as of right now, don't know what those remarks are. I'm pretty sure he delayed it to after that ceremony to walk out, but he should be coming out relatively soon with some information as to what. I don't know. we don't know. Nobody knows. And you know, some people have sent me emails and they've said, you know, Barry, can you put together some sort of schedule? I'm like, I can't. I thought we were going to go live at about 2 o'clock. I have an interview with a congressman all scheduled, and then we're going to talk about the Bitcoin and everything else that he wants to discuss then. But then this happens, so it's very hard to tell sometimes what he's doing and when he's doing it. And it's not just me. I mean, at that point, all the networks have to scurry basically to try and catch up and figure out what he's going to do. So that is pretty much when you're trying to cover the president, especially a president who's under constant threat, as we've heard. He's bouncing around doing all kinds of different things. And we just have to be ready at the call. And I'm not even like a beat reporter. I'm just a guy trying to cover the president. So thank God I've got somebody like Monica who keeps us updated for sure and lets us know what exactly is going on. Otherwise, we wouldn't know anything in terms of, from a day-to-day basis, what he is actually doing. So that being said, and if I sound like I'm just like covering time, yes, I am. I could go into some stuff, but if I do that, then I don't know when he's going to come out. So I do have I have RSBN set up so I can watch both streams. Actually, you guys can see it as well. Looks like they've returned to the Fort Bragg. So let's just listen in on that.
Ladies and gentlemen, soldiers, families, and honored guests, thank you for being here today. It's a great day for our Army and our community. To our Secretary of the Army, the Honorable Dan Driscoll, our senior official performing the duties of Undersecretary of the Army, Mr. David Fitzgerald, to the Commanding General of the United States Army Forces Command, General Pappas and Command Sergeant Major Holland, to our dear leaders and friends from across North Carolina, Senator Budd, Congressman Hudson, Congressman Harrigan, Lieutenant Governor Hunt, State Senator Overcash, State Representative Loftus, and Mayor and Mrs. Bellflowers. I'm grateful to you all for your leadership and service and for honoring us today with your presence. To the wonderful family of Private First Class Roland Bragg, it has been great to get to know you and to have you here after traveling from every corner of this nation. You have made this event truly special for everyone. Thank you. Today, we gather on an installation that is the largest in our Army per capita, covering 164,000 acres, supporting over 48,000 soldiers, 80,000 family members, 2,000 Department of Defense civilians, and nearly 100,000 retirees and their families. It is home to our Forces Command and Army Reserve Command. It is home to the 18th Airborne Corps, the Joint Special Operations Command, the United States Army Special Operations Command, the 82nd Airborne Division, and much more. Fort Bragg is just not any base. It is our nation's premier force projection platform. It is a culture of toughness and warfighting, and it is a way of life. We refer to Fort Bragg as the center of the universe, the beating heart of our Army's ability to deploy without warning anywhere across the globe, to help and assist others, to respond to crises, to deter conflict, and if necessary, to fight and win our nation's wars. For over 100 years, our citizens have come here from every corner of the nation, every walk of life to serve others, to live with noble purpose, and to challenge themselves to become the nation's warriors. Fort Bragg is a place where ordinary people transform into heroes. Ordinary people like Private First Class Roland L. Bragg. PFC Bragg came from humble beginnings. His story embodies the greatest generation. Born in Webster, Maine in 1923, he came of age in the depths of the Great Depression, selling vegetables from the family farm and working alongside his brother at his father's auto salvage yard. In July of 1943, Bragg enlisted in the Army, and after earning his jump wings, he was assigned to the 513th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 17th Airborne Division, 18th Airborne Corps, and he trained right here in the pine forests of Fort Bragg. Soon he was off to the European theater of World War II, and on a bitter cold January morning, outside of Bastogne, Belgium, as the Battle of the Bulge raged, he would put that training to test. The 17th Airborne, or the Golden Talons Division, was engaged in a fierce battle over a critical piece of terrain. During that fighting, Private First Class Bragg was wounded and taken prisoner along with 4 other paratroopers. They were subsequently taken to a German aid station behind enemy lines. While he was there, PFC Bragg learned that his German captor and another American paratrooper were both Freemasons. They somehow convinced the German guard to let the prisoners go, but only if Private First Class Bragg first knocked the German guard out with a rifle, so it looked like he struggled. Wounded as he was, PFC Bragg was more than happy to oblige. As well as he took the German soldier's uniform and then he commandeered a German ambulance nearby. Bragg then loaded the wounded paratroopers into the truck and began a race back to the American lines under intense fire. Fire which he actually believed had killed the wounded paratroopers in the back of the ambulance that he had tried to save. It was for this action that PFC Bragg earned the Silver Star, the 3rd highest military decoration for valor in combat. He was a hero. But we can only imagine the burden he carried for years, believing he had let his fellow paratroopers down. Roland Bragg married his wife Barbara in 1946, and together they raised 3 daughters, Linda, Deborah, and of course Diane, who we are honored to have with us here today. Diane, could you please stand up so we can see you? Thank you. With his family by his side, he enjoyed the long peace which his generation fought so hard to secure. Bragg rarely spoke of his service, and for nearly 50 years he continued to believe he was the sole survivor of the desperate flight from captivity in the Ardennes. But his Army story didn't end there. As the 50th anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge approached, John Martz, a fellow member of the 17th Airborne Division, was reflecting on his own wartime experience. John, too, had been wounded in the battle near Bastogne and found himself in a barn 20 miles behind the German lines. Someone, a nameless paratrooper, had loaded him and 3 others into an ambulance and drove them to safety. John Martz began writing letters to surviving members of his division, searching for the man who had saved his life. One of those letters was sent to Private First Class Bragg. Quote, "I remember sitting at the kitchen table reading that letter," Bragg told a California paper, "and chills went up and down my spine." Soon after reading the letter, Roland traveled to California and was reunited with the paratrooper whose life he had saved. 2 ordinary men, bound by an extraordinary moment, found each other across the decades. This reunion wasn't just a footnote in Roland's story. It was and stands as a testament to the bonds forged here in this place. Bonds that many who have trained and served here would immediately recognize and feel. From the pine forest where Roland trained to the battlefields of today, Fort Bragg has carried that spirit forward, shaping warriors who have answered the call across the years. Over 80 years have passed since Roland Bragg arrived here. 8 decades of soldiers from Fort Bragg deploying to every major conflict, defending America and her allies across the globe. And they come home to Fort Bragg. For some, it may be more. It may be home for just a few months, and for others, a lifetime. But this place is more than a military stronghold. It's the lifeblood of our region. If it were a city, this 260,000 strong person community would make it the 5th largest in North Carolina. Its economic impact, over $8 billion annually, fuels jobs, businesses, and growth in Fayetteville and across Cumberland County. Our soldiers, our spouses, and veterans are seamlessly intertwined in this community. Teachers in our schools, nurses in our hospitals, students at Fayetteville State and other institutions of higher education. These community ties and partnerships have bound us together across generations and form a collective pride and reverence for this place we honor today. Today we salute a man who answered the call, came to North Carolina, and forged the best version of himself. And so today we honor a hero worthy of the name Bragg. It is synonymous with excellence. It is the home of airborne and special operations forces. When the nation needs to project power on short notice, the first call comes to Fort Bragg. When that call comes, we answer with speed and overwhelming force, and if necessary, we will fight and prevail. Just down the street, about 500 meters off to my right, stands a statue. We call him Iron Mike, but the official name is the Airborne Trooper. It's not a statue of a particular person, but a mirror reflecting the potential of every soldier who passes through these gates. Roland Bragg didn't arrive here a hero. Shaped in the crucible of Bragg's training grounds and in the battlefields, he became one. So Iron Mike stands as proof of that promise. The nameless airborne trooper, a quiet hero reflecting not just who we are, but who we can become. And it has been my experience that this place and our nation and our Army are chock full of people like Roland Bragg. Fort Bragg is where soldiers transform, where the ordinary find the extraordinary, and where the call finds its answer, where a quiet man from Maine emerges a hero. In his honor and in the shared legacy of all who have called this place home, we answer the call. Welcome back to Bragg. May this place continue to forge heroes for our nation. Airborne, all the way.
Ladies and gentlemen, the granddaughter of Private First Class Roland L. Bragg, Mrs. Rebecca Amoco.
Well, good morning, everybody. Reflecting on memories of my grandparents and the question on many folks' minds after the renaming announcement, who is Roland L. Bragg? Well, let me tell you, he was a loving and devoted husband, father, and grandfather. He was a provider. He was a pillar of our small community in Noblesboro, Maine, and a philanthropist that did not seek recognition for his generosity. Even his own family did not know the full extent of his generosity until after he was gone. He liked to joke around. He didn't take things too seriously. And he was extraordinarily curious about everything. He loved new technology and wanted to know how things worked. And I remember him being particularly tickled when VHS movie cameras came out. I can only imagine what he would think of the technology we have now. I never saw my granddad wear his military uniform. He was not one to go to a Memorial Day parade or a Veterans Day parade. Even one Memorial Day when I was marching in a parade in our town, he was working. The uniform I knew him to wear were green and blue Dickies work clothes, a t-shirt, and later in life, suspenders. And he had a big heart. He was strong, hardworking, and proud. My grandpa, as you've heard, was a Depression-era kid. He grew up with very little, and he's definitely a member of what I think we all know and understand to be the greatest generation. He saved everything and anything that had any value or could be reused or salvaged in any way. And he put those salvage efforts to good use in many projects over the years. My grandfather was a stable force in my life. My grandparents' home was a second home to my sister Jennifer and I. We grew up in the same small town of Noblesboro, Maine, and we were at our grandparents' home a lot. I have a lot of really great memories of my granddad, playing checkers with him and him never letting me win. And I literally never won. He would make pancakes for us, and I know this was a tradition he did for his own children. He carried it on to his grandchildren, and he would take special requests, any shape you wanted. If it was a bunny or a bear, didn't matter. You want a leaf, he'll make it for you. I had a lot of fun going on outings with him. He loved to go to air shows and car shows and antiquing. And I got to go looking at jobs with him when he ran his building moving business. I remember climbing under buildings, learning about foundations and heavy equipment, construction, hydraulics, and learning negotiation and people skills from observing my grandfather and how he dealt with people around him, including his customers. One of my favorite jobs that we looked at together was out in Vinyl Haven, which is a small island off mid-coast Maine. And it was so much fun because we got to take the ferry boat out to the island. My granddad also provided encouragement for us to do well in school and rewarded each A with $1, which may not sound like much today, but in the 1980s, I assure you it was much appreciated. He was a very hard worker, almost to a fault. He was a man of many talents, a jack of all trades, and if something needed to be done, he would figure out how to do it. I remember him building cottages, salvaging buildings or items within them, moving buildings, operating and working on heavy equipment, welding, working on vehicles, working on and building a retaining wall for the home which we affectionately called the brick house that he and my grandmother had intended on moving into when they downsized, although they never did move into that home. He never talked about his time in World War II with me. I love history and was curious about it, and I discussed it with my grandmother a number of times. And I feel very blessed. You heard a moment ago the story of the man, John Martz, who reached out to him from California. This happened in the mid-90s. Again, my grandfather had spent his entire life thinking everyone in the back of that ambulance had died. And I feel like it was a tremendous gift for him to learn that someone had survived. And it was a true blessing. I also really love the story that my grandmother told me, which is also recounted in what is our history book for Noblesboro, Maine. I'll show you guys a copy here. This was a book that was written in 1988, and this was done in celebration for our bicentennial. And my grandparents both are featured in this book for a number of different reasons because they were very involved in their community. But there is one story that's recounted in here. It's one that my grandmother had shared with me. My grandmother told me that she and my grandfather were dating before he left for the war. And she decided to send him a Parker pen and pencil set with metal caps for Christmas. When he got that set, he wore it over the pocket over his heart. And thankfully, when he was hit in the chest with shrapnel, the metal pen and pencil prevented the shrapnel from entering his heart. He was sent to an Army hospital to convalesce, and during that time, he wrote home to his brother Floyd and Floyd's wife Lizzie in a letter dated February 22nd, 1945. And I'm going to just read you a short passage from that letter. When I got back to the rest camp, I came to the hospital to let them take some steel out of me. All I've been doing here is writing letters. This war is no fun, though. There's too much grief in it. I lost a lot of my buddies, but they all went down fighting. I learned one thing, and that is rank doesn't mean a thing when you're in a tight spot. It's the one with a little common sense. All I can say is that I thank God that I'm still here today. I've always loved this quote, and I've shared it with my own children over the years when retelling our family history. And I think my granddad, if he were here today, would encourage the folks here to use their common sense, to work hard in school and beyond. And most certainly, he would want them to appreciate the importance of giving back and making an impact on your own communities when you're done with your service to your country. And I thank you for having us here today.
That was the granddaughter of Private First Class Bragg, who Fort Bragg is now renamed as. We are going to step away for a 2-minute break here on Live Now from Fox. Continuing.
Okay, while they step away, I'm just going to bring you up to date. Nobody looking at the White House, looking at Monica. There's been no update. He's still scheduled to talk at any minute. Of course, he said 11 o'clock, and it is now 11:30. At this point, from everywhere I can tell, I know there's a lot of people speculating. I won't go ahead and do that, but nobody knows at this point what he's actually going to be speaking about. A lot of people speculating, having ideas, but you can read right here. President Trump is scheduled for an unexpected address at 11 a.m., which is now 11:30. President Donald Trump is going to be making an announcement. It was made suddenly as the speech was not on the original schedule for the day. No information regarding the topic of this address has been provided by the White House. So unless there's little people speaking into people's ears, at this point, nobody knows what actually is going to be talked about. That's what it is. So we're all in the same boat at this point. You can see all the major outlets. No topic given. Anyone want to guess? Eric Doherty, 30 minutes. White House says Trump will speak at 11 o'clock. Nothing. And you can go on and on and on. I thought that was Pasopic. Update speaking in 30 minutes, just in 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes. And we're well past 11 o'clock right now, and there's nothing happening. So we're going to continue watching what's going on at Fort Bragg and making sure we're peeking in as to all the different things that these guys may be talking about. But as of right now, there is nothing going on, and as soon as he makes his way to a podium, we'll absolutely take it. In the interim, I will keep this. Maybe they're saying an update now. Let me hear this.
North Carolina, as the redesignation ceremony continues from Fort Liberty to Fort Bragg.
Okay, so while they're doing that, just wanted to let you guys know, as you can all see, it is what it is. I bet it's the Ukraine war is done. Maybe that could be something that would warrant that. But as you can see, they are renaming, and it has been renamed. Obviously, they just dropped the information on the sign, and this is Fort Bragg again. Uh-oh. Oh. All right, so they may be switching feeds themselves. Hold on, let's see what they say.
Unfortunately, has dropped at least momentarily. I'm taking a look at this live stream, and it does look like it has gotten back underway. So we're going to head back live to North Carolina as this redesignation ceremony continues.
I find it interesting that gazillion-dollar companies, the same stuff that happens to me happens to them. It's live streaming. You know what's funny? People are like, hey, can you get a better picture quality? It's not television. It's live streaming. It's a little bit different. And it happens to all of us, including the big boys out there. All right, let's continue watching this until President Trump makes his way to the podium.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our ceremony. We thank you for attending. Airborne all the way.
So now that that is complete, more than likely, that may have been what President Trump was waiting for. He didn't want to interrupt that ceremony, so maybe at this point he's going to now come out. Or did they call over there and go, cut it, we need to get him on. So that, not really sure, but everybody is in the same place at this point. We can go ahead and begin looking at some comments here. Russian-American alliance, leaving NATO, no gold at Fort Knox. I've heard all the above. I've heard possibly about the second assassination. Heard about the jobs report. Could be any. To put it this way, it'll probably be about everything you just said, because if he's giving remarks, I have yet to see President Trump walk out there and do the Biden thing. Every time President Trump gives remarks, he takes questions. So it very well could end up being about all those things. Have yet to see him. He doesn't do it. He doesn't walk out and go, yeah, blah, 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 and then toddle off like Biden used to do. What a contrast. What an amazing contrast that someone is actually willing to take questions about anything. Once in a while he'll say, you know, it's not the time for that, especially if these people are, if he's honoring someone who's been dead and they want to talk about something else, idiot reporters that they are. But for the most part, if he comes out in front of a microphone, we can plan on him being here a while. At this point, who knows how long? It's going to be 11:45-ish when he takes the podium, and I don't know what it could be about. We will all see. Nobody is showing any transcript. He won't do a quick speech. It'll at least be an hour. Probably. Probably he'll be talking, announcing free eggs and bacon for life. All eggs are free. Oh, that would cause a problem, would it? Maybe the arrest of, maybe it might be about what happened yesterday. I don't know if you saw that Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, they arrested a few traitors. Yeah, some free traders. Let's see here. Someone says, hey, here's some information, Barry. U.S. CDC is planning a large study into potential connections between vaccines and autism. Interesting. Larry says, hey, Barry, it's a beautiful day in Fort Pierce, Florida. I will have to underscore and additionally say you're right, because we're here in Boca and it's fantastic. Fantastic day. Sorry if you guys aren't seeing that. Let me see. She's talking. Maybe we got some news here. Hold on.
President Trump, as he is set to deliver remarks from the Oval Office. And as soon as that event happens, we will play that out for you in its entirety. In the meantime, our next live event takes us back out.
All right. So, nope. So what she just said, which I think she is wrong. She said they are taping it and then they'll play it back. I have it that it's going to be live. And you probably think to yourself, well, Barry, how could it be live? Well, I'm also, one of the feeds, I got like 3 or 4 feeds that I'm monitoring. And one of the feeds I'm monitoring is the actual White House. And if I put that up, you'll see something here. Let me go ahead and put this up so you can see it. This is actually from the White House. And so they're scheduling to broadcast it live. So it's not going to be tape delayed unless they're going to tape delay from the White House. In any event, everybody's scrambling to fill time. I'm looking at RSBN. They're showing an old speech, not an old speech, but 2 days ago from J.D. Vance. I could put that on, or I could just talk to you guys and see what you're talking about, what you're interested in talking about. Let me refresh and see if anybody has any additional information. I actually have a couple of different news things I can talk to you about of interest. Just making sure I don't miss anything when I hit this button. But we have this. Trump administration, DHS has just ended collective bargaining for TSA officers. The DHS says, shockingly, TSA had more people doing full-time union work than actually performing security functions at 86% of the airports. Plus, 60% of poor performers were allowed to stay employed. Man, it just seems like everywhere we turn, all we keep finding is more and more waste. It's incredible. Still not nothing from the White House. Just so much waste. So today's job reports, the media, let me take a second and talk to you about today's job reports. The media is trying to hound, and this may be something President Trump is talking about because you're going to have to explain it. The job reports is down. The forecast was supposed to be higher. I think it ended up being like 151,000 jobs, and they thought it would be much higher. Well, the reason why it's lower is because we're getting rid of government jobs. And so obviously, by downsizing the government and increasing private sector jobs, the private sector is now going to be going up while the government jobs are going to be going down. And the media is trying to portray that as a negative, when actually it's a positive, because as you reduce the bloat in government and improve the amount of jobs in the private sector, it's better for the overall economy, i.e., we don't have to pay so much money to the government. So that's, I think, something from the bully pulpit is what he's going to have to explain to get people to understand that's why the job numbers are what they are. The media is not going to dig deep like that. They are not going to tell the American people anything as to the cause and effect and why things are happening. But there is a definitive cause to the numbers being lower, and that's because we're eliminating hundreds and thousands of worthless government jobs. So, of course, the jobs report's going to look better at worse because you're putting that in there. Scheduled, looking around here. Let me just see anything else if I can find here. So the other day, President Trump had said something about Washington, D.C. had to get in there and clean up the city. It looks like trash. And as of right now, the police and mayor, Trump asked the mayor to clean up this week, and what they're doing is cleaning up the homeless camps around Washington, D.C. Muchly needed. All right. Looks like RSBN is playing Pete Hegseth speaking from a couple days ago. Let's put that on.
What Border Patrol is already doing, which is why it's been incredible to hear from our partners about what we've been able to allow them to do, facilitate them, and we've seen it in the numbers. 98% drop in crossings on the southern border. We're not yet at 100% operational control, but we are on our way because that is the mandate that the president has given us. So more resources are coming to this border. We are dedicated to securing it. That's the reason for our trip and our partnership. And I want to thank all the men and women who've been doing it recently in uniform, who have been doing it a long time right here, have dedicated their lives to securing the American people. And at the Defense Department, we are committed to continuing to being a big part of it. So, Mr. Vice President, thanks for having us.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. Great. Now, Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, for your leadership in bringing the country's attention to what has been happening here at the border and the significant change that has already occurred under the short time that President Trump has been in office. Really, what you're seeing here today and what you'll continue to see is a unified effort across President Trump's national security team, the Department of Homeland Security, towards our mission, which is to ensure a safe, free, and prosperous society for Americans. As Director of National Intelligence, there are a number of areas where we are focused. The President talked about in his speech, over 21 million people have come across our borders illegally under Joe Biden's administration. There are many of them that we don't know who they are. They have not been vetted. We don't know where they are. I'll give you one quick example of one of the problems that we are getting after. From Central Asia, there were over 4,000 people who came across our borders using an ISIS-affiliated network. Our National Counterterrorism Center went through and identified those individuals. There were hundreds of them who were either known terrorists or associated with known terrorists. That information was provided to the Biden administration. You may remember in some of the news, a little over 100 of those people were arrested in 2024. Of those who were arrested, only 8 were either deported or remained in custody. Only 8. The rest of them were released back into our country. Where are they? What are they doing? What may they be plotting? This is just the beginning. There are many, many areas that we need to stay very focused on, working with the Department of Homeland Security, working with the FBI to ensure that we're keeping the American people safe. Our Counterterrorism Center is working on making sure that we have that single source for vetting so that we can figure out who is actually in our country and identify those who pose a threat and get them removed. The president's designation of the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations falls directly into this, especially as we're seeing some of the tactics that these cartels are using reflect some of the tactics that we've seen used by Islamist terrorists in countries that many of us have served in overseas. Our mission is very clear. Our objective is to keep the American people safe. I'm grateful to be a part of this team that President Trump has assembled to accomplish that mission. Thank you.
Great.
So there may be something else that I'm seeing here. A couple things that let me bring to your attention because both of them are kind of serious, actually, when you look at it. South Africa, as you know, they're basically killing the white people, and South Africa is being terrible. Plus, too long farmers in the. Okay, let me do that again. South Africa is being terrible. Plus, a long time to the farmers in the country. They are confiscating their land and farms. Hold on a second. And much worse than that, a bad place to be right now. And we are stopping all federal funding to South Africa. And to go a step further, any farmer with family from South Africa seeking to flee that country for reasons of safety will be invited to the United States of America with a rapid pathway to citizenship. This process will begin immediately. The reason I'm turning my head, I'm checking a different monitor to see if anything's happening. So he's going to be bringing in people from South Africa who are in imminent danger, especially the farmers, which I'm sure the media is going to have a whole big problem with that because, oh my God, they're white. Oh my, what are you bringing all these white people in? Shut up. And then he also posted this in regards to Russia. Is this Ashley? Let's see here. Hold on. Ashley just got a text. I believe this is from Monica. Let's see what's going on. Also, the comments will not be carried live on TV as we were initially told. They would be. So it'd be the usual tape playback situation instead. All right. So Monica just posted texted to Ashley, and they were told they would be broadcast live. Now they're not going to be broadcast live. They're going to be tape delayed. So we will see when different networks or whoever begins to cover it, and we will take you there as soon as possible. So I've got 3 different monitors working. All right, so this came out. Based on the fact that Russia is absolutely pounding Ukraine on the battlefield right now, I am strongly considering large-scale banking sanctions and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire and final settlement agreement on peace is reached, all in big letters. To Russia and Ukraine, get to the table right now before it's too late. Thank you. All right, so you saw 2 big announcements within the last 2 hours. One on South Africa. You got he's demanding that Russia and Ukraine come to the table and do something for peace immediately. You also saw at the same time, in case you haven't seen it, the jobs report has come out, and he's going to have to explain that. And now none of this is going to be live. It is all going to be on a tape delay. So he may be giving the remarks right now. He may have started them in the last 20 minutes or so. But in any event, they're going to come out like they've been doing after he makes the statement. I don't know how that's more safe, but I guess they're having to move this man around. I mean, we don't even know if he even stays in the White House I don't know. This is just so wild how they won't let him go live unless it's certain times. So that's what the current update is. I'm waiting to see what else comes out. And as soon as something does come out, I will cut right to it. But I'm in the same, and you're in the same position as everybody right now, waiting for these remarks to come out. So we're just waiting, looking to see if there's anything else. Nope, nothing new on any of the monitors. So everyone's waiting. Told you. You guys asked me, hey, listen. You have a schedule? No, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard because there's so much going on. So what I'm going to do is play the J.D. Vance talking as we try to accumulate stuff. And I still got to work on today's show because we're on live right now. So let me just take a couple comments just to see what you guys are seeing. Yeah, Christians are I'm for anything that keeps President Trump safe. I agree with that completely. Probably for security reasons. Can you imagine living like that? What I can tell you in terms of his schedule is he's due to leave the White House at, at 5 p.m. He's heading out of the White House at 5, and he's due to land here at, or actually get in Mar-a-Lago at 7:50 p.m. So he's leaving Washington today and heading this way, which is great. Hunter Biden has no money now. He can go pick fruit. Yeah, I have no compassion for that guy. Hurry up and wait. I was 10 years old when we moved to Nolanville, and it was April. I don't know where Nolanville. America has a new true president. President Trump, thank goodness. CCP bought and paid for the Chinese. Biden is gone. Yeah. Zelensky might need to be kept safe as well. Who knows? All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to, just to give me time, because, again, I didn't have a chance to prepare for this as well. This was not my normal show, and so I can show you something. I do have a couple of things here I can talk to you about. I don't know if you guys had seen this. But this was what happened with Carrie Lake. Remember, Carrie Lake is now going to be the new director or secretary of, what's it called? Voice of America. Check out this spot she put together. Oops, wrong one.
It's time to take a sledgehammer to the mainstream media's lies and propaganda. The corporate media establishment flat out lies to people, and no one is holding them accountable. They exploit misinformation. They use it to manipulate the masses. They use fear-mongering to create a scared and broken population. It's right out of a communist playbook. I know this because I used to work for the mainstream media. I'm Carrie Lake. You might recognize me from TV. I worked as a journalist and a news anchor for 27 years right here in Arizona. So I know the ins and outs of the corporate media. And I know how corrupt it is. The network overlords craft a narrative. They pump it out to their affiliates, and all of the anchors parrot the exact same thing.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
These media giants have absolute and total control over the information we, the people, consume. They control what we know, and then they tell us how to feel about it.
None of this makes sense to me.
It's not reporting. It's propaganda, and it's biased. It's unethical. Journalism is dead. And as soon as I realized it, I got out. I'm not afraid of the media, and I don't care what they say about me. I care about the people of Arizona. And I'm ready to have a real and honest conversation about what the hell is going on in our state today. Even though we live in the desert, we still have our own swamp. They've had the same establishment cabal running this state for too long. No matter who gets in, nothing changes. Illegal immigration at the border is out of control. Our weak, recycled politicians have lost control to the cartels. Our election integrity is wrecked. Our schools are pushing racist garbage onto our children. And violent crime has skyrocketed. The left wants to burn down our businesses, but we'd rather burn these. But if you dare question the narrative, they'll label you a conspiracy theorist. The real conspiracy theorists are spreading fake news from CNN right down to your local news station. We have lost our way. I'm ready to take a sledgehammer to the corrupt media, to destroy the corrupt cronyism that's been in Arizona far too long, and to take a sledgehammer to these weak border policies that are ruining our state. But I will never take a sledgehammer to that big, beautiful wall. We'll finish the damn wall. We don't want Arizona to become a suburb of California. I'll keep that California crap out of here.
And so now she is now gone from just Arizona to taking the helm of the biggest broadcast network in the world. One that most of us have never heard of, one that most of us have never even tuned into. But now we're going to be able to see the power of this new, not new, but this revamped Voice of America network, which is, I cannot believe I never heard about it. It is so big. I mean, it's global. It has so much distribution points. I can't find it on my cable system. I don't even know how to get a hold of it. So one of her thing is she's going to have to, basically come up and let us all know how it works. Let's see. Ashley says that Trump is on. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Okay, hold on. Let me take this. Real quick here. Here, look at this for a second. Hey, if you'd like to join 15,000 plus fellow patriots on X in our private X/Twitter group, go to fanfareshop.org/group. Just put in that URL in your browser. It'll take you right to our private group on X. Love to see you there. Let's share some content. And if you'd like to win...
And across Mexico border and Canada border and all that, they want to have the jobs in one location. And they've had space, and if they had space, they were able to create the jobs almost immediately. In some cases, they'll be building plants to take care of those jobs. So we created 9,000 new jobs already in the auto production, auto parts manufacturing. So we want the auto parts ideally, and I think from a simplicity standpoint too, to be built and made in the United States. It's in a single month. That all took place in a single month, 9,000 new auto jobs. You haven't heard that in a long time. After auto workers lost more than 27,000 auto jobs in the final year of Biden. These are also high-paying jobs. These are very prime jobs. The ISM Manufacturing Survey and the S&P Manufacturing Survey have also confirmed that our administration is presiding over a brand new domestic manufacturing boom after major collapse under Biden. It was a collapse. All he did is keep adding new government jobs, which are not the jobs you want. We're trying to shrink government and grow the private sector. That's what we've been doing. Under the final 2 years of Biden, 1 in every 4 jobs created in America was a government job. That's a tremendous percentage. But under the first full month of President Trump, which we haven't even gotten started yet, an incredible 93% of all job gains were in the private sector. So that statistic just came out. Big gains for native-born Americans. For the first time in 15 months, the job gains for native-born Americans, for American people born in America, exceeded job gains for migrant and foreign-born workers. This is the first time that's happened in more than 15 months. Employment for native-born workers went up by 284,000, while foreign-born workers went down by 87,000. Now, you've heard the same stat where foreign workers were taking up all the jobs or almost all the jobs. In some cases, literally all of the jobs. And now it's 284,000 native-born jobs here, people born in our country, 284,000, while foreign-born workers went down by 87,000. First time that's happened in a long time. So these are incredible numbers, and they're very early. I mean, we're here for 5 weeks, but we have been talking about it since the big win in November 5th. So a lot of these people, they listen to us speak and they say, well, I'm going to gear up, and they're gearing up. And so they've been gearing up. They've had a little time. It's not just 5 weeks. It's 5 weeks plus a few months. And they put it into effect pretty quickly. They have confidence that what I'm saying is going to happen. So with that, I'd like to ask a highly respected gentleman, Kevin Hassett. He's been with us for a long time, and he's been right about a lot. We had the greatest economy in history in the first term, and Kevin was a big part of it. So, Kevin, could you maybe give it a little description, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Trump. I think that the 3 things that you emphasized during the campaign is that you wanted to create domestic, high-paying manufacturing jobs, that you wanted to end wasteful government spending and reduce the unproductive government workers, and in fact, unleash them into the private economy where they could be more productive, and to create jobs for Americans. A lot of people said that if you deported illegals, that employment would go down because no Americans would take those jobs. And if you look, 280,000 American-born folks were hired, manufacturing jobs are going up, and this is just out of the expectation of your future policies, really, sir. It's in April when your Reciprocal Trade Act is expected to happen. The tax cuts haven't passed yet, and so people are clearly expecting the golden age. And if you want to forecast the future numbers, everybody, just keep in mind that President Trump has already gotten us $1.7 trillion in commitments of new factories, and those haven't even happened yet. Those aren't even in the numbers. And so I expect this is going to be a glimpse of a golden age to come, sir.
Thank you very much. One other thing, in Canada, we find that they're charging us over 200% for dairy products. You know about that. And when I left, we had that well taken care of, but under Biden, they just kept raising it. Very difficult to deal with, the Canadian representatives. 250% for dairy products. Tariff. So where do you hear that? You don't hear that. They have a tremendously high tariff. Give you the exact numbers in a little while coming out on lumber. So they sell us lumber. They have a tremendous tariff. They make it impossible for us to sell lumber or dairy products into Canada. But Our numbers are a tiny fraction of that, almost non-existent. And what we're doing is freeing up our forests from the environmental nonsense that they put on them, where you can't cut down a tree. And we have to cut down trees in order to build the firewalls. And those trees are sold, but we're freeing it up on an emergency basis because Canada has been ripping us off for years on tariffs for lumber and for dairy products. 250%, nobody ever talks about that. 250% tariff, which is taking advantage of our farmers, so that's not going to happen anymore. They'll be met with the exact same tariff unless they drop it. And that's what reciprocal means. And we may do it as early as today, or we'll wait till Monday or Tuesday. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to charge the same thing. It's not fair, never has been fair. And they've treated our farmers badly. Look, our country's been ripped off by everybody. That stops now. I had it stopped in my first term. And we're going to really stop it now because this has been very unfair. Our country, from an economic standpoint, a financial standpoint, and a trade standpoint, has been absolutely ripped off by almost every country in the world. Canada, Mexico, and then you just go right down the line. India charges us massive tariffs, massive. You can't even sell anything into India. It's almost restrictive. It is restrictive. We do very little business inside. They've agreed, by the way, they want to cut their tariffs way down now because somebody's finally exposing them for what they've done. And same thing with China, same thing with a lot of other countries. And the EU has been a terrible abuser of this country. I mean, the EU was formulated in order to take advantage of the United States, and they have taken it, but they're not taking advantage when I'm in charge. So sometimes you'll hear some negative things. It's always from outside countries. America will be very strong. And, if I'm a foreign country, they're going to do fine. But they can't do like they used to do because we're going to bring back our business into this country. We need it from a job standpoint. We need it from even just a psychological standpoint. Think of it, 90,000 factories are gone since the beginning of NAFTA. So we're not going to have that, and we're going to see them build it back. Now we've already had 5 major automobile companies. First time you've heard this in a long time, since my first term actually, where we were really rocking and rolling, and then Biden came in and he stopped everything. Like such a stupid thing to do, not even a believable thing. But we have many auto plants now coming in. We have big chip plants. We have the biggest chip company in the world, most powerful, probably one of the most powerful companies in the world. Wouldn't you say, Kevin? And he's coming in, and they're building one of the largest chip plants in the world. That'll be done in Arizona, mostly in Arizona. And that'll give us a big percentage. That one plant will give us a big percentage of the chip market, something we have very little of. We used to have Intel, and Intel was run by a man named Andy Grove. And Andy Grove was a tough, smart guy. I used to read about him when I was a young man, and he did an incredible job. He really dominated the chip business. And then he died, and I guess they had a series of people that didn't know what the hell they were doing, and we gradually lost the chip business, and now it's almost exclusively in Taiwan. They stole it from us. They took it from us, and I don't blame them. I give them credit. I blame the people that were sitting in this seat because they allowed it to happen. We could have protected that so easily. But so we had the chip business, and now it's all in Taiwan, almost exclusive, a little bit in South Korea, but mostly in Taiwan. And it's very important. Everything you do, everything you touch is now about chips. The brake of a car, the cars have chips all over the place. I was reading an article the other day where they talk about the brakes of a car are loaded up with chips. Who would think that a brake has a chip in it? But it's all about chips. So that was a big thing. And they'll be investing hundreds of billions of dollars in this country, and we'll be taking back a big, big portion of that industry. We have others coming in too. But a lot of car manufacturers are coming in, and they're coming in fast. And one of the reasons you see these numbers, and again, Kevin said it, and I said it a little bit, but the fact that they know I won the election, so after I was president-elect, they assumed that I was going to do what I said, because I do what I say. And so these numbers really reflect a lot of things that took place since November 5th, right? So, Kevin, thank you very much. Great job. Any questions?
Mr. President, how concerned are you that the large-scale federal government layoffs will weaken the labor market? How concerned are you?
The large-scale fentanyl what?
The federal government layoffs will impact the labor market, will weaken the labor market.
Oh. No, I think the labor market's going to be fantastic, but it's going to have high-paying manufacturing jobs as opposed to government jobs. We had too many people in government. You can't just do that. We had many, too many. This is for 40 years. You know, this isn't just now. This built up and got worse and worse, and they just hire more and more people. You look at Department of Education, it seems like so many buildings I ride by, it says Department of Education. They're all over the place. And we don't even want it. We want the education to be given by the states. It'll be much better. It'll move us to the top of the list from the bottom of the list, and actually save us money. But it's too important to even talk about them. It'll save us a lot of money, but we don't want that. We want education to be given. So you go to Iowa and Indiana and Idaho and all these places that are so well run. They're going to be producing education that will be the equivalent of, like Denmark is one, Norway, Sweden. Actually, China is one of the better in terms of education, and so we can't blame size anymore. You know, China has 1.4 billion people, but they're very high on their list. The one thing we're doing well on, we're number one on the list, is cost per pupil. We spend more money than any other country in the world by far. So I jokingly say the one thing we do well on is the cost. We spend more money, and yet we're toward the bottom of the list. Yeah.
Mr. President, I want to ask you, the joint address, millions of Americans watched your joint address earlier this week where you warned that there could be a little disturbance that Americans could feel as a function of these taxes, these tariffs. How much disturbance are you willing to accept in the near term as a function of that? And to set expectations, how long should Americans expect things to cost a bit more?
Well, so far, Peter, there hasn't been very much because these numbers are coming out. We're here for just a little over 4 weeks, and these are fantastic numbers. I was watching some of the reports this morning. They were surprised. There could be some disturbance, a little bit of disturbance. I solved a little bit of that because I have respect for our auto companies, and I gave them a little bit of a 1-month reprieve because it was unfair, although I'm sure they'll take advantage of it. I see they're driving a lot of cars into the U.S. to try and avoid the tariffs, and they're taking advantage of it a little bit. But they called me, they asked me, they said, could they have a little bit of help? And I decided, they're American companies, USMCA, and I let them have that. But this really kicks in, the reciprocals, kicks in on, let's see, I guess the 2nd. And I wanted it to be the 1st so badly. It just didn't want to be on April Fool's Day. So I made it the 2nd. That's going to cost a lot of money. That one day is going to cost a lot of money, but that's okay. But I don't see it. I don't see anything. I see good reports. I think we're going to have good numbers from the beginning. Now, globalists won't love this because this brings jobs back to America. So if they're coming back to America, maybe you'll lose some in other parts of the world. But the other parts of the world have done very well, and they'll continue to do very well. But I think the United States is going to be doing record business. We'll bring a lot of those 90,000 factories that have been lost over the last number of years. It's hard to believe. 90,000, think of what 90,000 is. 90,000 plants and factories are gone. We're going to bring back many of those plants and factories.
One day the tariffs are on, the next day they're off. Right now the markets, as you know well, prefer stability. Are you done going forward with the pauses and the carve-outs? Is that it for those?
There'll always be changes and adjustments, and you can't just. I could have, for instance, told the American car companies, "No, I'm not going to give you anything," and then you wouldn't have had to say, "Well, they're getting a little extra." It's just a little bit of a 1-month reprieve. They're very happy about what's happening. They won't have to go across borders, and you see the zigzagging. You have a fender made in Canada, you have something else made in Mexico. We don't want that. We want it made here. But there'll always be some modifications. I mean, if you have a wall in front of you, sometimes you have to go around the wall instead of through it. But I think very little. On occasion, if we can do something, we want to help companies. We want to help companies create jobs. So I could have left that, and you wouldn't have had a minor change. Instead, I was asked by the real majors, the big majors, if they could do this, and I said, yeah, I'll do it. I want you to produce a lot of jobs. And numerous of the people, actually all of the people I spoke to have already been, they're very much on the way to already doing it. That's why you have auto jobs increase. And the man, I don't know him, Sean Fain, I don't know him, and I did great, as you know, with the auto workers, with the Teamsters, with unions, I did fantastically well, best numbers ever by a Republican. And I have a lot of respect for those people. But Sean Fain, who I don't know, but wasn't a supporter, although the auto workers were big supporters. I watched him last night, and he said Donald Trump is absolutely right on tariffs. He said what he's doing on tariffs is an incredible thing, and it's about time somebody had the guts to do it, because we're going to save auto manufacturing. And I said to people when I was campaigning, you're going to have so many auto jobs, you're not going to believe what's going to happen. We're going to load up Michigan. I won the state of Michigan, as you know. And part of the reason I won it was I got a lot of auto workers that voted for me, Detroit, et cetera. But I think people are going to be very surprised. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. You mentioned in your remarks chips manufacturing, how a significant percentage is now in Taiwan. You also mentioned it in your address to Congress, and you called on Congress to overturn the CHIPS Act, which had bipartisan support in the last Congress. Why would you like to see this particular law overturned, Mr. President?
Because it's hundreds of billions of dollars, and it's just a waste of money. Now, some people have already taken the money and used it. Actually, it's very hard to qualify, because they go by race, they go by gender, they go by all sorts of things. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. You won't be able to find those people. So I don't even think anybody can qualify. They have so many different categories in order to qualify. You have to have so many of a certain race, a certain gender, a certain this, a certain, and I don't think they can qualify, but if they take the money, they better qualify, because they'll be watching them. But it's a tremendous waste of money. I didn't give the greatest chip company in the world, one of the greatest companies, I didn't give them 10 cents. They came here because of tariffs, because they didn't want to pay the tariffs. And they also came here because they like the results of the election, because they know that I'm very pro-business and pro-jobs. I mean, I'm pro-business, not for business sake. I'm pro-business because of jobs, because business is producing the jobs. Okay?
On Russia, if I may, President Putin is bombing Ukraine.
Yeah.
Do you still believe him when he tells you that he wants peace?
You know, I believe him. I believe him. I think we're doing very well with Russia. But right now they're bombing the hell out of Ukraine, and Ukraine, I'm finding it more difficult, frankly, to deal with Ukraine. And they don't have the cards. They don't have the cards. As you know, we're meeting in Saudi Arabia on sometime next week, early. And we're talking, I find that in terms of getting a final settlement, it may be easier dealing with Russia, which is surprising because they have all the cards. I mean, they're bombing the hell out of them right now. And I put a statement in, a very strong statement. Can't do that. You can't do that.
Mr. President.
We're trying to help them. And Ukraine has to get on the ball and get a job done. Michael, could you come up here? I see Michael back there. Good, I'm glad. He's traveling all over the world. I just saw him come in the door. Could you give a little definition of what's going on, please?
Sure. Well, the president has been crystal clear, and he's been clear to all sides. The fighting has to stop. Both sides need to get to the table. We had a good engagement. Both leaders have said only President Trump could do so, and only he has been able to do so. We had an initial engagement with the Russians. The Ukrainians had a great opportunity to bind our economies together through that mineral deal. Unfortunately, that didn't go so well, but we think we're going to get things back on track. Secretary Rubio, myself, and the Ukrainian delegation will be meeting in Saudi Arabia next week to get these talks back on track, get a ceasefire in place, and drive peace home under President Trump's leadership.
I think both parties want to settle. I think if I wasn't president, this war would have had no chance of settlement, zero chance. But I think we're going to get it settled and stopped. We got to stop. They're losing on average 2,000 soldiers a week. That's a lot of soldiers. Do you agree, Peter?
It's a lot of soldiers on both sides, I agree. Do you, Mr. President, think that Vladimir Putin is taking advantage of the U.S. pause right now on intelligence and military aid to Ukraine?
No, I actually think he's doing what anybody else would do. I think he's I think he wants to get it stopped and settled, and I think he's hitting them harder than he's been hitting them. And I think probably anybody in that position would be doing that right now. He wants to get it ended, and I think Ukraine wants to get it ended, but I don't see, it's crazy. They're taking tremendous punishment. I don't quite get it, but I suspect, Michael, he probably wants to get it ended.
He does, Mr. President. The Russians are taking incredible losses on the front. As the president has
They both
said,
are.
this is a meat grinder of people, of material, of national treasure, and no one else has any solutions except to let this war continue forever. But I'll add, the president has had multiple conversations and a visit from President Macron of France, Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom. We have the NATO Secretary General coming next week. We have this meeting with the Ukrainians. We've had it with the Russians. All of this in the president's first month in his leadership. We will engage in the shuttle diplomacy, and we will continue to use his leadership and what leverage we have to get both sides of the peace table. It's not going to be easy, but President Trump.
This war should have never happened. It would have never happened if I were president, but it did happen. So a lot of other things shouldn't have happened too. We shouldn't have 21 million people pouring into our country through open borders, many of whom are criminals, very bad criminals, including murderers, thousands of murderers. Many killed, far more than one person, and they're roaming our streets. But Tom Holman and Kristi Noem are doing an incredible job, and we're getting them out of here. And we'll get them out. We'll get them all out. But all these things shouldn't have happened. We shouldn't have inflation. We shouldn't have had this horrible inflation where the prices have gone up. Look at eggs. So we're doing a good job. We're doing a good job.
Mr. President, in regards to the pause on military assistance to Ukraine, you put out on your social media post today that Russia is pounding Ukraine.
That's right.
Why not provide Ukraine with air defenses? And what happens, Mr. President, when Ukraine runs out of
Well, because
Patriot missile batteries?
good question. Because I have to know that they want to settle. I don't know that they want to settle. If they don't want to settle, we're out of there because we want them to settle. And I'm doing it to stop death. More important than anything else. Secondarily, way down the line is the money. So we're in for $350 billion, and Europe is in for $100 billion. They should be in for the same or more than us. And, you know, I watched over the last week or so what's going on in Europe. This thing could end up in World War III if we don't get it settled. This could really end up in a World War III. We got to get it settled.
So on Iran, how confident are you that the Iranians will negotiate with you? And is Israel on board with this outrage?
Yeah, I saw the hostages the other day. They came in, people that were not young, some young and some older, much older. And they gave, it was hard for them to do it actually. They gave statements as to what happened. I was asking, what happened? How was it? I said, did you see anybody in there that was kind, like out of the hundreds of people that you were seeing, Hamas? Did some of them wink at you and say, don't worry, you're going to be okay, or give you a piece of bread, or no? I said, were there any people that were like kind? I was shocked. The answer was nobody. There was nobody. Just the opposite. They'd be slapped and punched. One man broke his ribs. He couldn't breathe for a month. It was brutal. I was so surprised. Could you think there'd be a couple of people that would be kind, that would say, you're going to be okay, but they had none of that. It's pretty amazing. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. President.
He's a kind person.
Well, according to the
Although not to Zelensky, he wasn't.
Well, you know what, that's another
But to Trump, he's been good.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian.
Nice tie, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. I like yours too.
Two questions. One on peace. Why don't you think any other European countries are offering a peace deal? It seems like no one's come to the table for peace except for you.
Yeah. It's a very good question. Sometimes questions aren't answerable. They're in a very unusual position. They don't know how to end the war. I think I do know how to end the war. Despite the Russia hoax, I've always had a good relationship with Putin. And, you know, he wants to end the war. He wants to end it. And I think he's going to be more generous than he has to be. And that's pretty good. That means a lot of good things. Because frankly, you could have made a great deal if this war never started, you could have made a great deal. I don't know that anything would have had to be given up. This was not a war that was going to start, Brian. And it didn't start. For 4 years, somebody said, well, how do we know that? Well, for 4 years, it didn't start. I used to speak to Vladimir about it. I used to speak to him about it at length. It was the apple of his eye, but there was no way he was going in. And he knew, there were going to be consequences. But it did start. I mean, think of what happened. Inflation, you have the war with Ukraine and Russia, that wouldn't have happened. October 7th would have never happened. Israel, they had no money. Iran had no money. Iran was stone cold broke, and now they have a lot of money. But then that's going to be the next thing you'll be talking about is Iran. What's going to happen with Iran? And there'll be some interesting days ahead. That's all I can tell you. We're down to final strokes with Iran. That's going to be an interesting time. And we'll see what happens. But we're down to the final moments. We're at final moments. You can't let them have a nuclear weapon. I think that I would have had a deal within 1 month after the rigged election of 2020. They were all set to make a deal. And then when I lost, they saw this person who's a stupid person, very stupid person. And they said, let's not make a deal. And they were right. He took the sanctions off. They became rich under Biden. They went from having no money to having $300 billion. All in a short period. It's oil. Oil builds up fast. It's a nice living if you have a nice oil well. And they do. They have a lot of nice oil wells, right? So anyway, it's going to be a big thing. It's an interesting time in the history of the world. But we have a situation with Iran that something's going to happen very soon. Very, very soon. You'll be talking about that pretty soon, I guess. And hopefully we can have a peace deal. I'm not speaking out of strength or weakness. I'm just saying I'd rather see a peace deal than the other. But the other will solve the problem.
Mr. President, your allies are calling on you to pardon Derek Chauvin. Are you considering pardoning Derek Chauvin?
No, I haven't even heard about it. No.
Mr. President, on peace.
I haven't heard that.
In the first term, you may recall, I broke the news that you were nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. And the reason for that was the work that you led on the Abraham Accords. I spoke yesterday with the member of parliament, the Norwegian parliament, that nominated you. And he said what the Nobel Committee is looking for from you, Mr. President, is security guarantees for Ukraine. Is that a possibility, Mr. President?
So before I even think about that, I want to settle the war, get it finished. Because if I'm not here, nobody's going to settle it. And President Macron has said that, and everybody said that. The prime ministers and presidents. We're pushing very hard. That's all I'm thinking about now. As far as the question about security later, that's the easy part. The hard part is getting it settled. We got to get them. We're losing 2,000 human beings every week. More than that, actually. 2,000 nice, young, although they're getting older because they're drafting much older now. In the case of one country, much older, because a lot of the young people have been killed. It's very sad, and I'd like to see if I could stop that. And I'd like to also see if we could stop making these massive payments from the United States. I mean, Biden gave away money like it was water, with no anything, got nothing for it. Europe did it in the form of a loan. They get their money back, we don't. So that's how we came up with the rare earth deal. But we started, behind the 8 ball. He could have gone to Europe. He could have said, come on, you got to put up money with us. You got to put up money with us. But he never did that. They just kept handing money out because he was grossly incompetent. All right, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
All right, so that was the president answering both the job questions, talking about Iran, talking about Russia, talking about Ukraine, and talking about a whole bunch of different things. And what I'm seeing evolve here, and what I had put something up there earlier on screen, that it's almost as if that was a different crew of reporters. I don't know if it's because it was short notice, that they had to shuffle around and different people had to get there, but it didn't seem like, I didn't hear Caitlin Collins' voice. I didn't hear a lot of the normal harpies that we hear on Trump's press conferences. So that was different. I don't think there was anything earth-shaking, so I'm not really sure why he wanted to hold it, especially with everything he's got coming up the rest of the day. So the rest of the day, just to let you know, at 2, what was that? Let's see, at 2:30, President Trump is going to be signing executive orders. But that doesn't really mean anything in terms of programming because, as you've seen, 2:30 could mean 3:30 before we get video. 2:30 could mean 4 o'clock before we get video. So I'm going to be disconnecting quickly here because I got to get ready for my show, the regular show, and get everything I was going to talk about, put that together, then come back on at 2 o'clock, and we'll begin our regular show. I believe Ashley has an interview with a congressman from California. Ashley just said she sent me a message from Monica. I think you sent it to my personal text. Hold on, let me pull this up. She said Monica she sent it to my personal one thing. I have so many messages in my personal X account, it hardly ever loads because there's so many. I'm going to have to go in and delete a whole bunch of them. Ashley, please send it to the fanfare message. I can't, my messages on my personal account are not loading. That way I can take a look at it. Okay, wait a minute. Wow, there's a long summary. That is long. Said, asked how long Americans could feel pain from the tariffs. POTUS said it hasn't been that bad yet. All right, so Monica actually went question by question. So let me do the ask and answer. He was asked how long Americans could feel pain from the tariffs. POTUS said it hasn't been that bad yet. There could be some disturbance, a little bit of disturbance involved. I solved a little bit of that because I have respect for auto companies and blah, 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 blah. All right, so one of the things that the media jumps right on is they always want to look at the bounce. The bounce meaning, what's going to happen with tariffs right now. A tariff isn't designed to today work. It's not instant medicine. It's not something you pour on your soup and, oh, that tastes better automatically. No, it's something that you put in the soup when you're cooking it. And eventually when the soup is done cooking, it tastes much better. The media is trying to condition you to see, oh, look, see, the tariffs aren't working. Everybody's pissed off the stock market. Chill. That's what he needs. He needs to just come out and say, chill. You must chill. It takes a little bit. Don't panic. This is what we expect to see happen. He's taking the snow globe and shaking the hell out of it, and you're watching how things maneuver, and then eventually things settle in and take off. Look who's crying and who's not. Justin Trudeau yesterday was crying on television. Did President Trump look like he was in tears? No. Look who's in trouble. The EU is scrambling, trying to help Zelensky and do all this stuff. Is Trump running around? No. So if you can see the people who seem to be on fire running around, understand that they know what's about to happen. But our media is somehow placing their insanity on us and trying to get us all riled up. And I'm like, you don't understand how tariffs work. It's not an overnight fix. It's not a quick Band-Aid. It's something that takes time. You didn't go broke in a day. Biden put all this stuff in place and America gradually went like that. And then what I'm going to show you, one of the shows today, is something just completely egregious that he did. He did more damage, I bet, in a period of time between the election and the inauguration than he did probably in much of his rest of his term. When they found out he lost, and they said, oh, well, we got 2 months to just destroy everything we can and to steal everything we can. And now we're finding it, and the media won't report it. The media won't report all of the theft and grift and everything else that happened from the day of the election forward. So Trump's fixing it. He's working with Elon. The Democrats aren't a factor. Only the courts are. Even then, he's ignoring them for the most part and just buying time. And he's just doing what he has to do. See, the problem that the media has at this point is you're working with a president who doesn't care about rankings and ratings and things of that nature right now. Because he's not running for re-election. And he knows even if his ratings were to tank and go down to like 10%, because people are freaking out because the eggs cost more, what do you think is going to happen when it starts going like this? Well, this is actually working. He was right. He was right. I don't want to take advice from any Democrat. I don't want to take advice from anyone in the media when you're talking about the economy. And that's what you have to begin thinking and talking to other people about is if you were going to invest, who would you want to get investment advice from? Someone who's made it. Someone who's successful, who has the money. You don't want to talk to a homeless person in California. Hey, so what do you think we should do? Should we, I don't know. Well, wait a minute. You live here in this tent? Yeah. Then you might not be the right person for me to be talking to. Now, that's a drastic example. But I also want to tell you, if you're talking in your circle of friends and family, and they're talking about where things are going to go economically, I would say the same thing to them. It's like, hey, Bob, I know you got $50 in the bank. Why the hell am I talking to you about economics? Oh, yeah, what do you know? If you knew, you would have more than $50 in the bank. So, in that regard, the media is conditioning people as if they know better. And they bring on these different economists that'll say this and say that, and it's the same thing. If you knew, why don't you have a whole bunch of money? You see, Trump can say that because he has a bunch of money. Scott Bessent can say that because, he's got a bunch of money, earned. Howard Lutnick got a whole lot of money earned. Elon Musk, a whole lot of money earned. Over in here, who y'all got? You have idiots telling people what isn't or isn't going to work, and all they're doing is pandering on MSNBC and CNN, and they haven't done anything. It's very simple when you live your life that way and only take advice from people who are actually doing something or people who can show you how to do something or give you the information on how to do something, then you're going to be able to do something. But if you're listening to people who ain't got any money, who can't tell you what they've done successfully or not successfully, then don't listen to them. And it might mean sometimes you just have Bob as the friend that you guys go out and barbecue, have a couple of beers with. He's a nice guy. Not telling you not to have friends. Yeah, Bob's cool. Don't ask Bob about money if Bob ain't got any money. That's all I'm saying. And that's not a rude thing. I wouldn't go talk to Bob if I had a medical issue. Hey, Bob, it's been hurting kind of bad lately. What do you think it is? Oh, I think it's something wrong with your ankle and the nerve's actually going up into your shoulder. I'm going to have to check on that, Bob, because I don't think it has anything to do with my ankle. It's my shoulder. Well, that's what I thought it was one time. I went and stubbed my toe and my ankle, and my shoulder stopped hurting. Don't listen to people who are giving you advice out of their circle of knowledge. It's funny, if you're married, you know sometimes what the circle of knowledge is, don't you? Like you walk in the kitchen and you watch your wife making something of it. Honey, what? Shh. Get out. Oh, okay. Okay, you've earned that cred, right? Yeah. I've tasted your food for 30 years. Have you complained? No. Then, shh, get out my kitchen. And you get out the kitchen. Honey, what's that smell? Your sunburn? Shh. Get out. She's earned that credibility. So in that regards, relax with all the naysayers and everybody else because that's what their job is. Their job is to BS you. I'm sick of people who do that stuff. I hope people understand how to care properly for these chicks they're buying. Are people buying chickens? Yeah, maybe. I couldn't do it. Stop listening to broke people. Yeah, exactly. Has Trump spoken yet? Yeah, you might want to rewind, but yep, we all waited, and he already spoke. So Bongino won't do that because of his conflict of interest. Yeah. All right, so let me just tell you about that. Ashley and I have been kicking around all kinds of things. And I've been talking to the wife, and I'm like, this is crazy. This schedule is absolutely insane. Never knowing when he's going to come on, how he's going to come on. And over the last couple of months, we've realized if something is going to happen, it's going to happen, meaning him personally, either Caroline Leavitt or him speaking. It's usually going to happen in a certain window, usually from 11 o'clock till sometime about 4:30, right in that window. And I usually wanted to go on at 3 and then do a second show at 8, and then I'd have to bounce up and do something early because and so like, enough of that, enough of playing. And then with the whole thing with Dan Bongino, I was like, yeah, there's an opening here. And I, full respect to Dan Bongino. I think he's the top dog. He's the guy up there. And there's going to be a whole lot of people gunning for his audience. And I'm not gunning for his audience per se. I just feel like it would better suit me. And I didn't want to go in that time frame because I felt it was too crowded. You got Benny goes on at 11, Dan Bongino goes on at 11, and I'm like, there's just too much going on. But now what I've decided to do is our show will be like in the old Rush Limbaugh slot. And I find it that, a lot of people listen to Clay and Buck, and Dan Bongino was also on some of those stations at Rush. So he's vacating his podcast and he's vacating his radio show. So 12 o'clock now opens up. And I'm thinking to myself, I am not Clay and I'm not, Buck, and they've got a huge audience that they inherited from Rush Limbaugh, but I don't see a whole lot of competition in that 12 o'clock area. So here's what we're going to do. Starting Monday, March 17th, I am going to do a fixed show. It will always start at 12. And if it starts ahead of time at 12, it's going to be at 12. Like if he came on and did 11 o'clock press conference, I'd hit the button and I would just let it run. And then 12 o'clock, I'd start my show. So 12 o'clock every day, starting Monday, March 17th, will be the time for our new show. And if it goes for 2 hours or if it goes for 3 hours, whatever it is, Ashley can have a better continuity with scheduling. You guys will have a fixed time. Barry goes on at 12 every single day. And then at 7 p.m. instead of 8, at 7 p.m. I'll do the night show. And then what I'm going to do is take both of those shows, put them back to back, and let them run overnight. So basically a noon show, a 7 o'clock show, download them both, package them, and then run those starting at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock and let them run their course. So just let that run and then boom, 12 o'clock, we'll just come back on the next day. But in any event, we're going to start slow. It'll be 12 o'clock and then it'll be 7 o'clock. And then they'll have the cuts that, you see I dropped the cut earlier this morning. We'll have cuts as well for you guys to consume. Going to do a whole bunch of new branding, same fanfare stuff, just imaging, they call it, sound imaging, intros, outros, bumps, all that kind of stuff. We're going to do a whole bunch of stuff beginning on March 17th. 12 p.m. will be the time that Monday, which coincides, in fact, with the fact that Ashley and the kids are coming down next weekend. And so the schedule will be kind of screwed up while they're here because I want to spend time with the daughter and the grandkids and have some fun with them, and also the wife, of course. And then the 17th will start up. So we're going to take that, Rush Limbaugh spot, and we're going to go 12 to 3 Monday through Friday. And I hope you join me. Now you can set your clock starting Monday the 17th and saying, okay, this is what they're going to be doing every day from 12 to 7. I think noon and 7 is perfect, not too early, and 7 p.m. not too late. Yep, love to have you guys there. I think that would be perfect. Yep, 9 and 4 on the West Coast. Exactly. And at that point, you guys, did I clear these ties with Trump? No, but I don't have, as you saw today, I don't have a problem jumping on. If for some reason he does a prayer breakfast or something, then you know what? That means I'm on from 9 o'clock until 3. I mean, so I will obviously bump that around. What somebody said, Mountain Time 10 and 5. Barry, the new time for show 12 and 7, March 17, 2025. That's where we're going to be going. And so I got to disconnect now because I got to get ready for his next event, which is at 2:30. Which we know at this point they're not going to be showing live, so I'll have a show ready to go and jump in at probably 2, and that'll lead us, I'll do my show whenever he decides to show up, we'll take it, and then also at 3:30 was it? Now that's going to be very interesting, just to let you guys know, 3 o'clock, which means in Trump time, that's 3:30. We have daylight savings time, and we have CPT, which I ain't going to tell you what CPT is. You can look that up. And now we have DJT, because his time is whenever. But it's scheduled for 3. There's going to be a number of guests speaking that you may want to listen to. That should be really cool. Some of these people in digital assetry, crypto, and things of that nature. So tune in. Let me go ahead. I was gonna jump and like, oh wait a minute, you gotta do the super chats if there's any in there. I don't foresee there being a whole lot of super chats in here right now. We're early, and let's see here. And it didn't populate for some reason. Okay, now it's populating. All right, so Trisha Pierce, thank you, and Robinson Velasco, thank you. So POTUS, we are losing many lives. That's a leader. Okay. So anyway, we're going to jump. I'll put, I don't mind. I'll put the, what do you call it? The after show party thing on, and you guys can hang out. Actually, I can't. In order for me to get ready for the 2 o'clock hour, I'm just going to have to cut right now. And then, because I need the computer to start editing and doing some stuff for 2 o'clock. All right, guys, ladies, thank you for tuning in. Do I got anything else I got to do here? Let me just check before I leave. Rumble asked me to do something, so let me go ahead and help these guys out because they've been so good to me. Let's see here. And well, I forgot about this. Before I go, let me just tell you, before I go, and it's become a fan favorite. And Ashley is talking to the people at Patriot Addict, these guys, to go ahead and get a URL. Right now, we only have the QR code here. If you want to get this Trump knife, which so many people are now getting. In fact, I should invest in the company because I should be making some profit off this. But this is the Trump knife. It's awesome. I've done this without cutting myself. It's got some really good weight to it. Not a cheap wife. Did I say not a cheap wife? Not a cheap knife. It doesn't bend and break or anything like that. It's very sharp. It's got a little thing here that you can cut a seat belt. If you had this on you and for some reason you need to hit a seat belt, it's got the window pluggy thing here so you could actually break a window. Be careful. Not a kid's thing. This thing will cut you. It will cut you. And it's great for hunting and fishing, and people have told me it is not a switchblade. I forget what kind of blade they say it is, but look that's a good sized knife right there. That's a knife. You can tell by my hand. That's a big knife. I got big hands too. That's a big knife. So go ahead and get yourself one of these. Don't cut yourself when it comes. Be very careful, very sharp, very sturdy, but go ahead and get the Patriot Addict red Trump knife just by clicking right over here on the QR code, and they'll get it out to you pretty quick. People have been saying they've been getting them in 3-4 days. And also, it's free. Did I tell you? It's free. The only thing you have to pay is shipping. The shipping is about $13.99. The knife would retail in excess of $70, but you get it free. Free. The knife is free. All you have to do is pay shipping. That's it, $13.99, and it's yours. So give it a shot. Hope you guys enjoyed the way everybody else has been enjoying it. They've been absolutely loving it. And I like it too. I'll have to admit that I'm one who actually likes it as well. With that, I am going to disconnect, say thank you very much for tuning in with no notice whatsoever, just to hear President Trump talk about the things that he had to talk about, which involved the jobs report. And I'm glad he did, because the media sucks. The media sucks. So when we get back together in an hour or so, I'm going to have some more information for you on that and some actual data from Kevin, who was in the office, in the White House office with him, who was discussing what these numbers represent. All right, so talk to you in a little bit. Check X, where I'm going to post the billboard, so you know what happens and what time. Talk to you in a little while.